Okay, so we shall continue with the chapter drugs acting on the GIT. In that, we had started with the second chapter under that, that is anti-emetic drugs. Okay, so in the earlier lecture, we have seen what is the definition of anti-emetics, the classification of various drugs which are used, and we had also covered the individual drugs under the three classes, that is how they are helpful, though not in detail because we all have already studied it earlier in detail. So we had covered the classes like anticholinergic drugs, okay, then the H1 antihistaminics, which are also used as anti-emetics, and the neuroleptics class, that is the antipsychotic drugs. Because of their D2 blocking property, they also have anti-emetic property, okay, because we have seen several targets, that muscarinic receptors, histaminergic receptors, then the D2 receptors are involved, okay, even 5-HT3, opioid receptors, NK1 receptors, these are all the targets. So these receptors, when blocked, anti-emetic action will be produced. Okay, so coming to the next class of drug, that is the prokinetic drugs. Okay, now as the name implies, prokinetic, okay, that is kinetic meaning movement, okay, pro meaning something which is enhancing the kinetics. Okay, so because these particular drugs were introduced mainly to increase the kinetics of the GI tract. Okay, that is, these drugs they promote the GI transit, the GI motility is increased, and they speed the gastric emptying, that is movement of your food content from the stomach into the duodenum. So that is enhanced by the coordinated propulsive motility. So they enhance the GI motility. That's how they are named as prokinetic drugs. Okay, so initially when they were introduced, they were specifically introduced for their property to enhance the GI motility or to increase the GI motility. Okay, so they were also known as gastric hurrying agent. Okay, gastric hurrying meaning something which will promote the motility of your GI tract. So this is what the common term which was given to the drugs which were discovered. So metoclopramide was the first drug which was discovered under this particular class as a prokinetic drug, the ones which will increase the GI motility. But then later on it was found that this particular drug also has specific anti-emetic property. Okay, though under emesis we have seen that those conditions which can reduce the GI motility, they will predispose to nausea and vomiting. That's what we have seen under the emesis, under the emetics chapter. Okay, so any condition which will reduce the GI motility, there are chances that nausea and vomiting will be precipitated. Okay, so for that matter, this promotion of the GI transit or the GI motility, so this could help in controlling that emesis. Okay, but then later on it was found that it's not merely increasing the GI motility, but some of these drugs, not all, but some of the drugs falling in this particular class, they have specific anti-emetic property also. They can specifically act on certain receptors, okay, stimulate them or block them, and that's how they induce that anti-emetic action. Okay, so this was discovered a little later. Okay, so to start with the first drug, that is metoclopramide, which is discussed in detail as a prototype drug. Okay, now when it was discovered that it is chemically related to procainamide. Procainamide, you are already aware that it's an anti-arrhythmic drug. Okay, now though metoclopramide is chemically related to procainamide, which has anti-arrhythmic property, still this drug does not have any anti-arrhythmic property. Okay, it has no pharmacological similarity with this particular drug. That means it does not have any anti-arrhythmic property, rather it has gastric harrying property. Okay, so in early 1970s this drug was introduced as the first drug under this particular category for its gastric hurrying property, that is its tendency to increase the GI motility. But now it is quite popularly used as an anti-emetic drug. So later on several mechanisms were discovered which led to its importance as a specific anti-emetic drug. Okay. Now, coming to the actions, the pharmacological actions of metoclopramide. First action is on the GIT. Now, let's see what action exactly it produces on the GIT. So, as we have already seen under the introduction, it will increase the GI motility. So, there are certain physiological changes which it is inducing. So, that will help, or it will facilitate its anti-emetic property also. Okay. Now, specifically, it has more prominent action on the upper GI tract. Okay, that is in your esophagus and the stomach. So basically, it produces action on the upper GI tract rather than towards the later part, that is the colon. Okay, so here it increases the gastric peristalsis, meaning the stomach. Gastric meaning pertaining to your stomach. So it increases the gastric peristalsis. So peristalsis, it takes place throughout your GIT, right? This you all have studied under the anatomy and physiology of your gastrointestinal tract. So because of the peristaltic action, the food content which you intake, so that will move from your mouth into the esophagus, then further it will go into the stomach, from there it will go into the small intestine, then to the large intestine. Okay, so peristalsis takes place throughout the GI tract. Okay, so here this particular class of drug, or this metoclopramide, specifically increases the gastric peristalsis. That is, it is more prominent in producing or enhancing the gastric peristalsis, that is peristaltic movement in your stomach. Okay, whereas the pylorus is the last part of your stomach, right here, this one. Okay, so this portion is relaxed. Okay, so this earlier portion of your stomach, okay, maybe the fundus and the body, so in these regions the peristaltic movements is increased, whereas the later part of the stomach, that is relaxed. Okay, even the first part of the duodenum, the starting part of the duodenum which is attached to your stomach, so that is also relaxed by metoclopramide. So what is happening in the upper regions, peristalsis is increased, whereas the lower regions they are relaxed. So distension of these areas will take place. So what will happen? It will promote the movement of content from here, upper part of your GIT, towards the further parts. Okay, so this is how it is promoting the forward movement of your gastric content. That is, it will enhance the gastric emptying, that is movement of your food from the stomach region into the duodenum. Okay, now actually this particular action is independent of the vagal innervation. Vagal nerve is innervating your GI tract, as you all have already studied under the ANS. Okay, but this action on your GIT, it is more prominent when this vagus is intact or it is active. Okay. Then, apart from this, certain other actions are also seen on the GIT, that is on the LES. The LES, it is the lower esophageal sphincter, which is guarding the opening of your esophagus into the stomach. So again, in the earlier lecture we have seen that whenever any content moves from the esophagus to the stomach, this LES relaxes during your swallowing, okay, so that the content from your esophagus easily enters into your stomach. But once the content reaches your stomach, the LES tone should increase. Okay, that is the sphincter. When the tone of this LES, meaning these are the muscles which are located in this particular region. So what will happen is, when their tone is increased, tone is a basic contracted phase of a particular muscle. So when the tone of this lower esophageal sphincter increases, obviously the content from the stomach will not be able to move in the backward direction. So whenever contractions of the smooth muscles of the stomach takes place, the content will move in the forward direction, that is towards the duodenum, and they will not move towards the esophagus. So that's the role of your lower esophageal sphincter, or LES. Now what metoclopramide is doing is, it is increasing the tone of the LES. Okay, and that's how gastroesophageal reflex is opposed. Okay, reflux, gastroesophageal reflux meaning the movement of the content in the backward direction. That's what is seen under the GERD. GERD is gastroesophageal reflux disease, wherein there is backward movement of the content from the stomach to the esophagus. Actually, it should not move in the backward direction because the content in your stomach are acidic in nature. So, if it enters over here, esophagus mucosa is not protected by any mucous layer or protective layer. So what will happen if the content from your stomach moves in the backward direction? It will result in perforation and damage to the esophagus. That's what we have seen yesterday also and under the emetics chapter also. Okay, so by these actions, that is by increasing the LEA stone, metoclopramide is preventing the backward movement of your content of the GIT or the content of your stomach. That is gastroesophageal reflux is opposed. So it is preventing the backward movement of your content, and that's what is happening during vomiting, right? In the vomiting sensation, what happens? A contraction of the stomach, abdominal muscles, diaphragm, they take place in such a way that the contents from your stomach move in the backward direction. So by increasing the LEA stone, it is also helping in that, preventing the vomiting sensation. Okay, this particular drug. Then it also increases the intestinal peristalsis to some extent. Okay, majorly it has a prominent effect on the upper GIT. That is, your gastric peristalsis is increased. That's what we have seen. But to some extent, intestinal peristalsis, maybe the first part of the duodenum. So here also peristaltic action is increased, but it does not have any action on the colonic motility. That is your large intestine. The GI motility in the large intestine, the peristaltic action in the large intestine, or your colon specifically, that is not affected. So also gastric secretion is not affected. Whatever secretions are taking place over here, acid, pepsin and all that. So secretions of the stomach, they are not altered by the metoclopramide. Okay, so this is to do with the actions on the GIT. Okay, that is majorly it promotes the GI motility. Specifically, it promotes the motility in the upper gastric region, and it relaxes the lower region, increases the LEA stone so that the content move in the forward direction, and backward movement, that is reflux, gastroesophageal reflux, is prevented. Okay. Next action is on CNS. Okay. Now this metoclopramide, though it has a prominent action on the GIT, apart from that it can also act on the CTZ. Okay, so by acting on the CTZ, it also produces effective anti-emetic action also. Okay, it can also block the apomorphine induced vomiting. We have seen apomorphine, it is used as an emetic, acts by dopaminergic D2 agonism. So this metoclopramide can block the apomorphine induced vomiting by blocking the D2 receptor. Okay, so this is how it will act as an anti-emetic drug, whereas the gastrokinetic action, that is the increase in the gastric peristalsis, that will also contribute to the anti-emetic effect. Okay, so that we have already covered earlier, that is decrease in the GI motility will predispose to nausea and vomiting. So by promoting the gastric peristalsis, it will again add to the anti-emetic effect of this particular drug. Then other effects in the CNS include extrapyramidal side effects, okay, and prolactin secretion augmenting action. Now as I have told that it has D2 receptor blocking property, right, in the CTZ, plus it can also cross the blood-brain barrier so that the D2 receptors in the CNS are also blocked. So because of that, extrapyramidal side effects can be seen by the use of this particular drug. Same like your antipsychotic drugs or the neuroleptic drugs. They are also producing the extrapyramidal side effects we have seen because of their D2 blocking property. So the similar property is shown by metoclopramide also. For the same reason, it is also increasing the prolactin secretion also. So that hyperprolactinemia, which is again a type of side effects produced by the neuroleptics. So similar type of effect is seen by the use of metoclopramide also. Okay. Now, coming to the mechanism of action. Okay, how exactly it is producing various actions. Okay, we are not talking about only the anti-emetic action, but other actions also. Okay, so now basically the mechanism involves the interaction with two types of receptors, that is dopaminergic receptors and the serotonergic receptors. So basically it affects these two type of receptors. Now let us see, there are different facets of action at these two receptors. Okay, now first mechanism involves D2 antagonism, that is it will block the D2 receptor. This drug metoclopramide can bind to the D2 receptor, which is a subtype of dopaminergic receptor. It will bind to it, but it has no intrinsic activity. Okay, it has only affinity. It can go and bind to the receptor, but it cannot stimulate the receptor. So it acts as a blocker for this particular receptor. So its D2 antagonism is responsible for certain actions. Now let us see what are those different actions, okay, which are produced by D2 antagonism. Now before going into the mechanism of the metoclopramide, let us see what is the role of dopamine over here. Okay, dopamine, it is one of the catecholamine which is present in the body. It exerts most of its actions through the dopaminergic receptors. There are different types of dopaminergic receptors. We have already seen D1, D2, D3, D4, D5. Okay, so several actions are shown by this dopamine. Now, pertaining to the GI tract, let us see what is the role of this dopamine. Okay. Dopamine, it acts as an inhibitory transmitter in the GI. Okay, inhibitory. Why it is known as an inhibitory transmitter is because it acts to delay the gastric emptying, meaning it is inhibiting some action. Okay, so there are certain transmitters, it's a neurotransmitter. So certain transmitters act as a excitatory transmitter. So they will promote some actions. Okay, and there are certain transmitters, they will act as inhibitory transmitters. So this dopamine, it acts as an inhibitory transmitter. Okay, so because of this inhibitory action on the GIT, it acts to delay the gastric emptying. It is slowing down the peristaltic action, or the movement of your content of stomach into the intestine is slowed down, okay, when the food is present in the stomach. Okay, so also it causes the gastric dilatation. Okay, gastric dilatation is produced. Your stomach region, dilatation is seen. Even the LES is relaxed, lower esophageal sphincter, it is relaxed. Okay, so both these action will predispose to nausea and vomiting. Okay, so during nausea or vomiting, this gastric dilatation and LES tone reduction or LES relaxation, so that is mediated by your dopamine. Okay, so that's how nausea and vomiting is precipitated. Now, coming to the mechanism of metoclopramide. Now, metoclopramide, as we have seen, that it has D2 antagonistic property. That is, it will block the D2 receptors. So, by blocking these D2 receptors in your GI tract, all these actions will be opposed. Okay, so it will hasten the gastric emptying, okay, which is delayed over here by dopamine. So by blocking the D2 receptor, it will hasten the GI emptying. It will increase the GI motility, specifically in the gastric region, and it will increase the gastric emptying. So it will reduce the time required for movement of the content from the stomach to the intestine. Okay, so also it will enhance the LES tone, which was relaxed over here. Okay, so LES tone is also increased so that the regurgitation, the backward movement of your content will be stopped. Okay, so all these actions, okay, these are mainly by augmenting the ACH release. That is, acetylcholine release is augmented by D2 antagonism, and that's how all these actions are produced. Okay, because we have seen the actions of acetylcholine on the GI tract, it increases the GI motility. This is already covered under the ANS. Okay, so by blocking the D2 receptors, metoclopramide augments the ACH release. That is, it enhances the ACH release which in turn will hasten the gastric emptying, and it will increase the tone of the LES. Okay. Then, apart from this, it also has central anti-dopaminergic action also. Okay, that is anti-blockage of the D2 receptors also will take place in the CTZ. Okay, so this is actually responsible for the anti-emetic property. Okay, so apart from this, okay, now here it is enhancing the GI motility. Here in the second part we have seen that by D2 blocking property in your CNS, specifically in the CTZ, it is having anti-emetic property. Now there are certain other manifestations or certain other effects also which are produced due to the D2 blockage. So these include antagonism of apomorphine induced vomiting, because we have seen that apomorphine acts as an emetic by acting as an agonist at the D2 receptors. Okay, so by blocking D2 receptors, this particular drug metoclopramide will antagonize the vomiting which is induced by apomorphine also. That can also be reversed. Apart from that, CPZ like extrapyramidal effects will be produced. CPZ is chlorpromazine. Chlorpromazine is an antipsychotic drug, okay, prototype drug which we have studied earlier. So this has extrapyramidal side effects. So because of the D2 blocking property, the central D2 blocking property, this drug metoclopramide also has extrapyramidal side effects. Apart from that, hyperprolactinemia can also be produced because of the same reason. So these are all the actions pertaining to D2 antagonism. Because of D2 dopaminergic receptor blockage, all these actions will be produced. Then, second mechanism involves 5-HT4 agonism. Okay, that is, it is a type of serotonergic receptor, 5-HT4. We have seen that there are several subtypes of these receptors. So 5-HT4 receptor agonism, meaning metoclopramide can bind to this receptor and stimulate this particular receptor. Okay, so it has agonistic property at 5-HT4 receptor. So by this agonistic property, it enhances the ACH release again in the GI tract. So in turn, ACH will enhance the GI motility and also it will enhance the LES tone. So same like earlier in the earlier mechanism we have seen, because of the enhancement of the release of the ACH. Okay, so all these actions indirectly are produced by 5-HT4 receptor activation in the primary efferent neurons of the enteric nervous system. Okay, so because of this, it has gastric hurrying and LES tonic effect. That is, it will enhance the GI motility plus it will enhance the tone of the LES also. And the third mechanism involves 5-HT3 antagonism. Okay, 5-HT4 receptors are stimulated, whereas 5-HT3 receptors are antagonized or they are blocked. And this action is shown at higher concentrations. So at higher concentrations, metoclopramide can block 5-HT3 receptors which are present in the NTS CTZ and on the inhibitory myendric interneurons also. Okay, so by having antagonistic action on the 5-HT3 receptor, okay, in the periphery, it will augment the ACH release again. Okay, so all the three actions, maybe D2 antagonism, 5-HT4 agonism or 5-HT3 antagonism, all these three actions will enhance the release of ACH in the gut, which in turn is having the action on GI tract, that is enhancing the GI motility and enhancing the tone of the LES. Okay. Then this particular action, that is central 5-HT3 blockage, it is significant only when large doses are administered. That is only at higher concentrations this particular action, central 5-HT3 blockage, this is significant only at high doses which are used to control the cancer chemotherapy induced vomit. And coming to the pharmacokinetics, this particular drug is rapidly absorbed orally. It can cross the blood-brain barrier, so it can easily enter the brain, also crosses the placenta so that it can affect the fetus also. It is secreted in the milk, so that it can affect the suckling infant also. Okay, so you need to be very careful in these two situations, during pregnancy and during the lactation. Okay, as far as possible, of course it is effective in morning sickness, but then as far as possible it is supposed to be avoided. Okay, as we have seen earlier in morning sickness, as far as possible avoid the drug. Okay, unless and until that condition is that severe. Okay, even in the lactating mothers also it should be avoided, otherwise it will precipitate the adverse effects in the suckling infant. Okay, and coming to the metabolism part, it is partly conjugated in the liver and mainly excreted in the urine, and in the unchanged form as well as in the conjugated form. Okay, within 24 hours the drug will be excreted out, and the tree half-life of this drug is 3 to 6 hours, so it's a short acting drug. Whereas the action, the onset of its action, it depends upon the route which is followed. Now orally this particular drug will take half an hour to 1 hour to start its action, but when it is administered by IM route, it will act within 10 minutes. Even by IV administration, it will act within 2 minutes. Okay, so in case of any emergencies, parenteral routes may be preferred, and the action lasts for 4 to 6 hours. So it will show antiemetic action for around about 4 to 6 hours once it starts acting. The next part is the interactions. Now, in the first part of the actions we have seen on the GIT that it enhances the GI motility, right? To some majorly it will enhance the peristalsis in the stomach, but to some extent in the small intestine also the peristaltic action will be enhanced. So mainly action on the GIT is to enhance the gastric emptying, that is movement of the content from the stomach to the intestine is enhanced by this particular drug. Okay, and we have already seen in the introduction part that most of the drugs will get absorbed into the intestine. Okay, so for that matter, many of the drugs, those drugs which are getting absorbed from the intestines, okay, their absorption will be hastened or enhanced by this particular metoclopramide by promoting the GI motility. So few examples are quoted over here: aspirin, diazepam, etc. Okay, so because of facilitating the gastric emptying, it will hasten the absorption of most of the drugs. Okay. Then, because of the same reason, that is enhancement in the GI motility, it will reduce the extent of absorption of drugs like digoxin or tetracycline. So these are the drugs which mainly gets absorbed into the stomach region rather than the intestines. So by enhancing the gastric emptying, your drug will move into the intestines at a faster rate. Okay, so less time is available for it to get absorbed, because it will stay in the stomach for a less period of time. So that's how absorption of such drugs like digoxin and tetracycline, which are absorbed from the stomach, so their absorption will be reduced. So also cimetidine bioavailability is also reduced. Cimetidine is an H2 blocker. Okay, so its bioavailability is also reduced because of the same reason. Okay, action on the GI tract. Okay. Then one more interaction is because of its mechanism of action, that is blockage of the D2 receptors. Okay, so we have seen in the mechanism, the first one is blockage or antagonism of the D2 receptors. So by blocking this dopaminergic receptor in the basal ganglia, it will abolish the therapeutic effect of levodopa. Levodopa, it is an anti-Parkinsonian drug we have seen. Levodopa is a precursor of dopamine, which is administered in the patients of advanced cases of Parkinson's disease. So in the body, once it enters into your brain, it gets activated and it gets converted into dopamine, and it will act on the D2 receptors. But metoclopramide can also cross the blood-brain barrier and block the D2 receptors in your CNS. Okay, so when metoclopramide and levodopa are given together, both of these drugs have opposite action. One is a D2 blocker, one is a D2 agonistic drug. So both will antagonize each other's action. Okay, that is metoclopramide will actually antagonize the action of levodopa. So levodopa should not be combined with metoclopramide. Levodopa will not produce the action. Okay. So this is to do with the interactions. Coming to the adverse effects. Now this particular drug is well tolerated, so a few side effects are produced with this particular drug, that is sedation, then dizziness, loose stools because of the gastric harrowing action, then muscle dystonia. This is because of its D2 antagonistic property. It's one of the extrapyramidal side effects. So these are the main side effects which are produced. Whereas if you continue the treatment for long term, it can cause Parkinsonism because it is having D2 blocking property. So it can precipitate the condition, that is Parkinsonism can be precipitated. Apart from that, it has the endocrine changes also. So because of this, galactorrhea, okay, that is production of milk which is not associated with the pregnancy. Usually milk generation or secretion takes place only after the childbirth. But here this galactorrhea, that is milk production, is not associated with pregnancy. Then another complication because of its endocrine action is the gynecomastia. Female characteristics may be developed in the males. Okay, so enlargement of the breast may take place in the males because of the hormonal changes. Okay. However, though it is enhancing the milk production, it should not be used to augment the lactation. Okay, it will produce the adverse effects. Okay, it should not be used to enhance lactation. Sometimes some ladies have the problem with the lactation, but this drug should not. Though it can enhance the milk production, it should not be used for this purpose. Okay. Then, apart from that, this drug also gets secreted in the milk. Though the amount is small, still the suckling infant may develop certain adverse effects like loose motions, dystonia, myoclonus may be precipitated in the baby. So it should not be given to the lactating mothers. Then coming to the uses, the first of course and the important use is as anti-emetic. So if you can see that it is effective in many types of vomiting like post-operative, drug-induced vomiting, disease-associated vomiting, radiation sickness, that is radiation therapy may also induce vomiting. But it is less effective in motion sickness. So reasons we have already covered earlier. Generally in motion sickness, anticholinergic and H1 antihistaminergic drugs are preferred because over there in the pathways those two types of receptors or pathways are involved. Now apart from these, this metoclopramide is also effective in morning sickness also, that is vomiting associated with the pregnancy. Now though teratogenic effects have not been reported, still it is better to avoid. Okay, it's not totally safe. Okay, so it's better to avoid this particular drug during pregnancy unless and until it is essential to administer. Next uses as a gastrokinetic, that is to enhance the GI motility. So in certain situations it is necessary to accelerate the gastric emptying. Okay, say for example for an emergency general anesthetic, supposing if the person has taken food before say less than 4 hours, and if you want to administer general anesthetic in that particular person, maybe it's an emergency operation which needs to be carried out. So for that purpose the GI tract has to be empty. Okay, usually during operations, just before operations, the GI tract is emptied. Okay, so for this purpose, because of its gastrokinetic property, it can be used. Okay, to evacuate the bowel. Then next is to relieve the post-vagotomy or diabetes associated gastric stasis. Gastric stasis meaning here the gastric motility is affected, so that the contents of your stomach does not move forward. Okay, post vagotomy. Vagotomy is removal of the vagus. Okay, so that will again affect the GI motility. So to promote the GI motility in these two conditions, it can be used as a gastrokinetic. To facilitate the duodenal intubation. Supposing if you have to carry out some internal diagnostic procedures for which you need to insert maybe intubations up to your duodenum. So this will facilitate by enhancing the GI motility. It will help in intubation. It will facilitate in the intubation. Next use is in dyspepsia, that is indigestion. Okay, either dyspepsia or certain functional GI disorders, this particular drug can be used. Then also it is used to stop the persistent hiccups also. Then next use is gastroesophageal reflux disease. Okay, so here we have seen earlier that LES stone is reduced so that the content of your stomach may go into your esophagus. So that can be prevented by this metoclopramide. The reasons we have already seen, that it enhances the gastric peristalsis, enhances the LES stone. So it can be used as an adjuvant drug to acid suppression therapy. Then this finishes the metoclopramide. Next drug is domperidone. Okay, domperidone again is a D2 antagonist which is chemically related to haloperidol. Haloperidol again, it is a antipsychotic drug, but as such metoclopramide is it is not related to that, pharmacologically not related to haloperidol. Okay. Then coming to the mechanism of action. Okay, because of its D2 blocking property in the upper GI tract, it enhances the GI motility. So mechanism we have already covered under the metoclopramide. Okay, because of D2 blocking property, the ACH release will be enhanced so that the gastric emptying is enhanced, LES stone is increased. So that's how it will help. Okay, by increasing the GI motility. Then it crosses the blood-brain barrier poorly. It cannot cross the blood-brain barrier as such. Okay, but we have seen that CTZ, it is not protected by blood-brain barrier, right? Okay, so it can easily act on the CTZ. Okay, it blocks the D2 receptors in the CTZ and produces the anti-emetic action. But because it cannot enter the brain, it crosses the blood-brain barrier poorly. So it will not block the D2 receptors in your areas in your brain. So extrapyramidal side effects are rare to occur with this drug. Okay, but hyperprolactinemia to some extent it can occur. Okay, so this is very important. Because it cannot cross blood-brain barrier, extrapyramidal side effects cannot be seen. And there is one more advantage also, we will see that a little later in the interactions, but it can act on the CTZ. Since it is not protected by blood-brain barrier, D2 receptor blockage in this particular area will produce the anti-emetic action. Then coming to the kinetics, it is absorbed orally. Okay, absorption is good, but bioavailability is just 15%. That's because of the first pass metabolism. Before reaching into the systemic circulation, it will get metabolized. So less of it is entering into your systemic circulation. Then metabolism, it takes place completely and the metabolites are excreted in the urine with a T half-life of 7.5 hours. Now, coming to the interactions. Okay, now this is intentional interaction, you can say. Now, we have seen the levodopa and bromocriptine, which is the D2 agonist, okay, dopaminergic agonist. So these drugs we have covered under the anti-Parkinsonian drugs, okay, where dopaminergic system is hypoactive. Okay. So now when this drug is given, when domperidone is given along with this levodopa or bromocriptine, it will counteract their emetic action. Now both these drugs, because they can act on the D2 receptor, it will enhance their action and into the CTZ, and it will produce nausea and vomiting. That's what we have seen as an adverse effect of this levodopa and bromocriptine. Now how this domperidone will help is that it will block the D2 receptors in the CTZ. What we have seen earlier, that it cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, whereas it can block the D2 receptors in the CTZ because it is not protected by blood-brain barrier. So whatever nausea and vomiting or emetic action produced by this levodopa and bromocriptine by stimulating the D2 receptors in the CTZ, that is blocked, but their therapeutic action is not blocked, because therapeutic action is shown by these two drugs by enhancing the action on the D2 receptors in the CNS, whereas domperidone cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So it will not act on or it will not affect the therapeutic effect of these two drugs, whereas it will help in abolishing the adverse effect of these particular drugs. Okay, so this is a favorable interaction, you can say. Okay, and coming to the side effects, the dryness of mouth can be produced, then loose stools, headache, rashes and galactorrhea. Apart from that, rapid IV injection will result in cardiac arrhythmias. Uses are same as that of metoclopramide, whereas some exceptions are there. It is less efficacious as a gastrokinetic agent, the second use which we have seen. Okay, and it is not useful in high hematogenic chemotherapy. It is not effective. Okay. The next drug is cisapride. This is again a prokinetic drug with little anti-emetic property. Okay, because it lacks the D2 antagonistic property, which is mainly responsible for its anti-emetic action. D2 antagonism in the CTZ is the main mechanism by which anti-emetic action is produced. Now, since cisapride lacks this action, it shows a very little anti-emetic property. Gastric harrowing property is there, okay, but anti-emetic property because of D2 antagonism is not there with the cisapride. Okay, so actions under the actions we can see that gastric emptying is accelerated. Okay, then LES tone is improved and esophageal peristalsis is also augmented by this particular drug. Okay, and the difference is that it facilitates a GI motility throughout the GI tract. We have seen earlier with the metoclopramide that colon motility is not affected, but this drug can enhance the motility in the colon as well. Okay, so often this particular drug will produce loose stools or loose motion, so that's a drawback. Coming to the mechanism of action, so we have seen that D2 antagonistic property is not there. So mainly its prokinetic action is exerted through the 5-HT4 agonistic property. So by enhancing the or stimulating the 5-HT4 receptors, it will enhance the release of ACH, and that's how it will promote the GI motility. Okay. Whereas weak 5-HT3 antagonistic property also is seen. Okay, but this one is the main mechanism. Okay, that is 5-HT4 agonist. Apart from this 5-HT4 activation, this will also enhance the loose stools. Okay, the reason behind this is it will promote the CAMP dependent chloride secretion in the colon. So because of 5-HT4 agonistic property, it will increase the secretion of the chloride ions in the colons. That's how it is increasing the water content of the stools which are present into the colon, and that's how it is producing the loose stools. Coming to the kinetics, it is primarily inactivated by CYP3A4 enzyme with a T half-life of 10 hours. Okay, so there are chances of interactions with the drugs which can either induce or inhibit this particular enzyme. Okay, then the major limitation with this drug was this one, arrhythmias. So there is a very high risk of precipitation of arrhythmias. So that's the reason why this drug was banned. Okay. Then mozapride. Mozapride is a congener of cisapride which was introduced late. Okay. This also has similar properties. Gastrokinetic and LES tone is increased by this particular drug also because of 5-HT4 agonistic property, same as that of cisapride, and 5-HT3 antagonistic property also is seen with mozapride, same like your cisapride, but this is a minor pathway as we have seen with the cisapride also. As such, no clinical anti-emetic action is produced by this particular drug. Okay. Also, extrapyramidal side effects, hyperprolactinemia, such side effects are also absent because it does not have any D2 blocking property. Okay. But arrhythmia precipitating tendency is there with this particular drug mozapride also, just like your cisapride. Okay, so this is a major limitation. Apart from this, certain side effects like diarrhea due to increase in the GI motility, abdominal pain, headache, dizziness and insomnia may be seen. Now the indications or the actual clinical uses of this particular drug. It's not used as antiemetic drug, but it is used mainly in the dyspepsia or diabetic gastroparesis. Diabetic gastroparesis is the condition in which the stomach does not contract appropriately. Okay. Then GERD is another condition in which it can be used, and certain chronic constipations also can be relieved because it produces the loose stools. Okay, by enhancing the GI motility. Next drug is etopride. Now this is also a D2 anti-dopaminergic drug. Okay, whereas earlier two drugs we have seen, cisapride, mozapride, they do not have any D2 blocking property. Metoclopramide, it has D2 blocking property. Same way, etopride also has D2 receptor blocking property. D2 anti-dopaminergic property is seen with etopride. Apart from that, again it has one more additional mechanism, that is anti-ACHE, that is anti-acetylcholine esterase activity. That is, acetylcholine esterase is an enzyme involved in the metabolism of acetylcholine. It metabolizes acetylcholine into acetate and choline. That's what we have seen under the transmission under the parasympathetic system. Okay, so this drug etopride, it has anti-ACHE. That is, it will inhibit this enzyme acetylcholine esterase, which is a specific enzyme involved in metabolism of ACH. So because of this property, acetylcholine will not be metabolized, because the metabolizing enzyme of ACH, acetylcholine, is inhibited by etopride. So ACH will not be metabolized. It will be potentiated. Its action will be potentiated, and we have seen that mainly it is the ACH which is responsible for increase in the GI motility, right? So that's how it shows an additional mechanism of action. Of course, D2 blocking property is there, plus it has anti-ACHE activity also. Whereas 5-HT4 affinity is very low with this particular drug. One more advantage with this particular drug is that QT prolonging potential is not seen with this drug. That is, arrhythmia precipitating tendency, for the reason which cisapride is banned. Even mozapride also shows this tendency. But etopride lacks the tendency to prolong the QT interval. So that's the reason why it is less likely or unlikely to produce any arrhythmias. Okay. Then metabolism, it takes place mainly by flavin monooxygenases. It is not metabolized by CYP isoenzymes. Okay, so since CYP enzyme is not involved, there are lack of any interactions with other drug. Okay, so since CYP3A4 enzyme is not involved, either inducers or inhibitors of these enzymes will not interact with this drug etopride. Okay, so interaction chances are also ruled out. Coming to the side effects, these include diarrhea, abdominal pain, headache, then rarely galactorrhea or gynecomastia may also be produced. Okay, and no extrapyramidal side effects are reported so far. Okay, so that's an added advantage. So you can see that this drug is quite advantageous.